Gift Matiza, Operations Manager.
May you please read for the record, second paragraph of that.
So, second para, on the 21st of April, we wrote a letter pertaining the price negotiations meeting we held with the Procurement Management Unit, and we proposed a 25% price reduction provided that the payments are effected to our USD Nostro account. After having raised this letter, we received a payment of 901,294 200 ZWL on 22 April 2022, being part payment towards the approved 12 million advance payment. However, there was no response to the letter.
Can you confirm that this was prior to the addendum being signed?
So I can't confirm at this point because of the time which has lapsed since then.
When was the addendum was signed?
It must be April 2022, if I remember correctly. 22 April, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it was 25th
Of April.
of April 2022. Were you still with the ministry?
Yes, I was still in the ministry.
So in other words, this letter was addressed to yourself?
Yes, it's possible.
Yes. So I would want you to explain how general this was going to happen in terms of how was Black Deck going to deliver the goods to good sales.
Yeah, obviously after receiving the advance payment, there were some certain expectations, and that's when we, through several meetings, we checked with our partner and our supplier how many goods delivered as of then when we were having those meetings.
Okay.
And okay. Can I continue?
Wait a minute. Yes. Where was Black Deck Private Limited going to source the goods?
They were going to source some of them locally, and if I remember correctly, not quite 100% sure, some of them will be imported, especially those exotic breeds. but largely it was from the local market.
You confirm they were not going to hold them from a wholesaler, as it were, but they would have to get into several many arrangements and agreements with several people.
Yeah, I think it would follow sense that obviously they would buy from several farmers and aggregate at the holding pens.
So in other words, maybe from one homestead they would buy 2 goats. From Mr. Mpofu, say for example, they will buy 5 goats. From one farm, maybe they will buy 100 goats, depending with what they would find.
It makes sense.
After buying these goats, they would then have to mobilize them and put them in some holding pens where they would then have to vaccinate the goats.
Yes, it makes sense.
Which facilities would obviously require maybe dipping facilities and things like that.
Dipping, feeding, and among other vet medication regimes. Confirm?
After doing this, the president was then going to be expected maybe to be doing a launch, say in Mutari, where you'd then do the pass on of these courts. Right?
Yes, I can confirm.
The president would be expected to what?
To launch a program where you would then pass on the bought goods to those areas in need and to those people in need.
Beneficiaries and areas, yes.
Your office would then communicate with Blackjack Private Limited to say, maybe next month we are expecting His Excellency to launch, so may you deliver these goods to this area or this number of goods to this area.
Yes, I can almost confirm that. That would be the delivery mechanics, really, or the distribution mechanics, pretty.
So it was initially envisaged that Blackjack Private Limited would then take those goods from wherever they would be and deliver them to that area, correct?
Yes, to that particular area and the other agreed holding pens in the respective and different target areas.
At some point, Blackjack Private Limited experienced challenges relating to red zones or the issues to do with foot on mouth, where they could not, say for example, shift the goods that were in Blawayo to, for example, a place in Mutari.
Yes, technically it makes sense because we have green and red zones and buffer zones for sure, especially with regards to foot and mouth. It makes sense.
And as at the time that you left the ministry, these were some of the challenges that were being tried to be addressed
Yes, I can confirm that, but if I remember and recall correctly, we had made a recommendation to say, let's not do across provinces, but in the and within the provinces. And again, it was going to make life easier for our supplier, especially with regards to the logistical costs. And also the technical issue with regards to the red, green, and buffer zones with regards to foot and mouth.
In the first year, how many Mashona was Legtech Private Limited licensed?
That's specific technical detail I can't recall at this point.
I want you to read for the record the number of the Mashona back for year 1 on page 47. It's right on top on the page that I'm talking to.
Yeah, I just want to check authenticity of the document first,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
since there are a lot of allegations. Okay, quick reference. Where?
Mashona and back, year 1.
So that's a delivery schedule.
Yes.
That's clause or section 28.1.
Yes.
The delivery of the above inputs over a period of 5 years. The below shows breakdown year by year until the inputs are completed. So Mashona back year 1, 3,118.
Okay, thank you.
Should I go to Ndebele?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
3,000.
Can you?
3,113. But otherwise, just to exhaust, Ndebele
No, you have
3,200.
answered.
And then Mashonga Do, 72,200. Thank you. To complete the record, sir.
Now, if my friend would want you to explain or clarify anything further, they would ask you. But just try to focus so that you answer my questions as quickly as possible. All right. After the verification was done by your ministry, how many Mashona did your ministry find?
Well, I can't remember correctly, but it was above 3,000, certainly. That's Mashona, if I recall the bridge.
Yes, you have that point.
Yeah.
To be specific, it was 3,595.
Yeah, it could be.
So Legtech Private Limited was exceeding its threshold.
On Mashona specifically, yes.
Yes.
But on the other breeds, maybe not.
Wait.
All right. Now, that same contract has other clauses, though. I would. want to refer you to clause 2.1. Can you read for the record what clause 2.1 says from the heading? After verification of authenticity.
Yeah, I'm just checking my stamp. Okay, can I read?
Yes, Joe.
So, clause 2, fraud and corruption. 2.1, if the procuring entity determine that the contractor and or any subcontractor is engaged in corrupt, fraudulent, collusive, coercive, or obstructive practices in competing for or in executing the contract, then the procuring entity may, after giving 14 days notice to the contractor, terminate the contractor's employment under the contract, and provisions of clause 16 shall apply as if such termination had been made under clause 16.1.
Right. I would want you also to read how the term fraudulent practice is defined in terms of clause point 2.3, page 36.
Definition: fraudulent practice means any act or omission, including a misrepresentation, that knowingly or recklessly misleads or attempts to mislead a party in order to obtain a financial or other benefit or to avoid an obligation.
Now, you did not invoke this particular, not yourself in personally, but your ministry did not invoke this clause 2.1 of the contract, correct?
Well, I think if you might recall the letter of the intention to cancel the contract, it made reference to, in quotes, a lie or misrepresentation of facts. And the major misrepresentation was that Black Deck had misrepresented that they had 32,500 goats in the holding pens, which was proven to be contrary by the inspection teams. So it made reference, that intention to cancel made reference to that.
Now, I want to clearly understand how your ministry viewed the misrepresentation. And I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. Your ministry, when it was viewing the misrepresentation, it was of the view that Black Deck Private Limited had lied that it had 32,500 goats. That was the nature of the misrepresentation according to your ministry.
Yes, if I recall then, yes, that was the belief. And that was, in fact, the gist of the misrepresentation. It was on the figures, on the numbers.
And nothing else?
Well, I can't remember any at this point. There could be, but I can't remember any.
submitted to this honorable court exhibit number 10, which is the letter of cancellation of the contract. Now, I want you to point out where that letter states that the cancellation is premised on clause 2 or clause 2.1 of the contract.
Okay, so in this particular letter signed by Professor Ojiri, it's not showing that in this particular one. Yeah.
In fact, this is what it says. It says, the ministry hereby terminates the contract with immediate effect for its convenience in terms of clause 16.31 of the contract. Clause 16.31 of the contract empowers the procuring entity to terminate the contract for its convenience. That is correct?
Yeah, it could be possible, and signed by a department, yes, it could be possible. And misrepresentation can be an inconvenience anyway.
I do appreciate that this letter was not signed by yourself. It was signed by the person who took over, Professor Njiri.
When was that?
It says here, Professor Ojiri. Maybe you could have reference to it.
Okay. What? 2020? 2022. Yeah, well, I was still within the in the ministry. So it's 4, permanent secretary.
So it's Professor Njiri for permanent secretary. He is now the current permanent secretary for the Ministry of Lands. You do appreciate that if it really was premised on fraud, the letter ought to have stated that we find this conduct to be fraudulent, to be misleading.
Well, it makes sense because that was really the main bone of contention then. It was to do with misrepresentation.
Okay.
Then it makes sense.
Thank you. Clause 18 of that same contract governed what would happen when there are disputes. Page 42.
Okay.
Yes, what does it say? You can read it for the record.
Is it 18.1 or 18.2?
You can read it 18.1.
Okay. Settlement of disputes. 18.1. Minister of Lands, Agriculture, and Blackdeck, Livestock and Poultry Farming, shall make every effort to resolve amicably by direct informal negotiation any disagreement or dispute arising between them under or in connection with the contract or its interpretation.
Yes, and then you can go forward.
18.2. If after 28 days the parties have failed to resolve their dispute or difference by such mutual negotiation, then either ministry or Blackdeck may give notice to the other party of its intention to commence arbitration under the terms of Arbitration Act as amended.
Okay. Thank you. Your good office did not invoke these provisions?
I think, if I remember correctly, to a certain extent it did. Why and how? Through the informal engagements or formal engagements. In fact, there were some formal engagements. As prescribed by the same section.
Yes, I agree with you, Doc. There were some formal engagements which were still happening. What I meant was, your ministry has not then given a 28 days ultimatum, nor has it approached any arbitration proceedings in connection with this matter, with this contract.
Well, I can't remember on that respect.
So I'll put it to you that up to date, the Ministry of Lands has not given any notice in terms of clause 2.1 of the contract, which requires them to give 14 days notice of there having been a fraudulent activity. That's the first step of what I'm putting to you.
I can't confirm that because I only left November 2023. So to date, I can't comment.
I'll further put it to you that your ministry or your former ministry has to date not put on terms and on notice in terms of this section given 28 days to Blackdeck Private Limited that it would approach arbitration proceedings.
I can't confirm to date.
On the contrary, I will further put it to you that your ministry or the department related to as others has acknowledged that there are existing engagements with Blackdeck Private Limited, but whilst those engagements are proceeding, has requested that Black Deck Private Limited deliver goods to certain projects and programs, and Black Deck Private Limited has been to an extent compliant.
So, if I may have a sight of the copy.
Okay. What is that document you are holding?
So, written 6 June 2023 to the operations manager, Mr. Matiza, and reference supply and delivery of
Please
500.
take note of his lordship's pen. It's written to who?
Operations manager, Black Deck Private Limited.
Who is the operations manager?
Now there's a new thing, trading as Colenso Farm. Gift Matiza, operations manager.
Please answer my question. Yes.
Yeah, I'm answering.
Who is the operations manager?
Gift Matiza.
Okay.
Yeah. According to this, at least.
Yes.
Yep.
It's signed by who?
I can't see. There's a PP here
PP for who?
for Professor Ojiri, Chief Director, ADAS.
Yes. Can you read for the record what the letter says?
Reference: supply and delivery of 500 bags he got to Chipinge district on 14 to 15 June 2023. Reference is made to the above. While the issue of tender contract is still being looked into, the ministry kindly requests the supply of 500 got bags to Chipinge by the middle of next week for a function. We look forward to the continued cooperation.
That letter was responded to by Black Deck Private Limited.
My Lord, Honorable Assessors, I think the position that is being adopted by my colleague is all wrong, in that the state is now seeing papers just going past it without it was never served. This is not how trials are conducted in this court. The state is not the state is a participant in this trial. It's supposed to be given ample notice of documents that the defense are going to rely on. Now what they are doing, that's fishing documents from their briefcase and passing them on to the witness. That is not how it is. That is not how it is done. The state should have been served with all these documents before the commencement of the trial. So really, the state had no time to go through these documents so that it can follow as well, follow the proceedings as well. So the state insists that it should be served with all the documents that the defense is going to rely on, not what is happening. This is not this can't be expected of them.
Yes, Mr. Jadilo.
Yes, my Lord, I do apologize unreservedly to my learned colleague. Before we started the cross-examination, I had indicated to my learned colleague that I had some documents. I had shown him the documents that I had made copies for him, and he has said, but this is one of the documents that I do not have a copy of. These documents, I procured them from my client today, after he had listened to the evidence of the witness, as documents that are sought to be rebuttal of the evidence that the witness led. Unfortunately, I also did not have sufficient copies. I do not have a problem, my lord, with furnishing him with the copies of these documents. If he needs time to go through them, I do not have a problem, my lord, that maybe he may then be allowed to go through them. He's entitled to due notice. He's entitled to read them. I thought I'd explained this to him. I apologize for that.
My lord, there was no such an explanation which was made to the state, maybe not to myself. The first document dated the 25th of July 2022 is the docket that was given to the state during the proceedings when the state was insisting. But it looks like my lady colleague is persisting. If he had given me, I could have gone through the documents. I would not have objected to I would not have objected to him producing the documents piecemeal. So if the state may be given all the documents that the defense intends to rely on, and then the same goes for the second accused person. Section 66 of the CP&E Act is quite instructive on how the defense is supposed to conduct itself. Yes. So we need all the documents, we go through them so that we can be together. We can follow what the issue is all about.
Very well, thank you. The objection is sustained by consent. The defense is therefore directed to serve on the state all documents which are intended to be used in cross-examination. And once the state has studied them and is ready to proceed, it will then ask us to reconvene.
Indebted, my lord.
Of course, as implied by the State Council, I think that should guide the second accused person as well.
All the copies. Yes. So there's no need to say that with some more copies. So you think to use some of them.
Very well, so we'll take an adjournment. We'll resume as soon as the state is ready to proceed.
Get it.
Court will adjourn.
Nakabaya,